Hello and welcome to another Magic 2015 gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a black-green graveyard deck featuring some of the new cards from the expansion, which are very interesting. So let's take a look at the deck. It's a typical black-green graveyard deck, so it's gonna try and abuse cards like Rescue from the Underworld to get big creatures back from the graveyard into play, as well as cards like Spider Spawning to generate a ton of spider tokens once you have a few creatures in the graveyard. Also having Flashback is nice, so you can cast it from your graveyard. And then to enable those cards, we play cards like Satyr Wayfinder that puts cards into our graveyard as well as getting us another land. And we also have Necromancer's Assistant to just put a few cards into the graveyard. So the rest of this deck is basically a lot of cheap creatures that draw an additional card, so we're basically never down on card advantage. And then there's a few fatties that we can either get back with Rescue from the Underworld or just cast later in the game. So Phyrexian Rager is an example of one of those cheap creatures that draws a card. Then we also have Elvish Visionary, a 2-mana 1/1 that draws a card. And we also have Masked Admirers, which is new from the expansion, as you can see by the shiny look. And it's a 3/2 for 4 mana, which is not a great rate, but he does draw us a card, so that's great. And if he happens to be in your graveyard and you play a creature spell, you can pay double green to get him back into your hand. So in a grindy, long game against, say, a control deck, this can provide a lot of card advantage. So it's nice to have him in the deck. Then let's take a look at the other cards here real quick. We've got the Dead Reckoning as one of our few non-creature spells, just to have some more removal against cards like Kiln Fiend and Talrand that could be a problem going long. And it also puts a card back on top of our library, so if we're looking for a specific creature, we can put it back on top of our deck. Then we also have Graveborn Muse as another card draw engine. So this does lose us a bit of life, which is a downside, but the card draw usually makes up for it. And we also have a few other zombies in Necromancer's Assistant to get us even more cards. But it does come at a cost of even more life, so we have to be careful not to play too many of them at the same time. Then we have Shadowborn Demon as a nice removal spell in this deck. Can destroy non-demon creature. Sometimes you wish you could destroy demons as well, because there's quite a few important demons you would like to kill, but alas, we can only kill non-demon creatures. And sometimes you can even use them as a sacrifice outlet to get rid of your Graveborn Muse if it's dealing too much damage to you. So there's the Shadowborn Demon, also just a big flyer that can kill the opponent. A Rescue, very important. Make sure to use this at instant speed to surprise the opponent, to perhaps get a fatty into play on your upkeep out of nowhere. And you can also use it to save your creatures from removal and trigger Enter the Battlefield abilities once more, which this deck has a lot of. Then another nice new addition from the expansion, Shieldred Whispering One, 7 mana 6/6 with a Swamp Walk, and at the beginning of your upkeep, target a creature from your graveyard enters the battlefield. So if you have any big creature in the graveyard, Shieldred will put it onto the battlefield right away, and meanwhile the opponent has to sacrifice a creature on his upkeep every time. Alright, move on with a Runescar Demon. This is sort of the tutor in the deck. It's also a 6/6 flyer that can finish a game, but we mainly want the effect for looking for another fatty or just another Runescar Demon. And there's one fatty in particular that we'll get to in a moment that is quite exceptional at closing out games. So usually when I play Runescar Demon, I will look for that particular creature, but let's keep the suspense. And it's actually not Gristlebrand. It's not the best creature we can get, although it is still pretty good. 7 mana, 8 mana 7/7 with Flying and Lifelink to pay 7 life and draw 7 cards is obviously pretty great, as you can draw half your deck if you have a bit of life to play with. But he's actually not even the best creature we can get with Runescar Demon, so the suspense keeps building. And what's it gonna be? Is it gonna be Pelakka Worm? Nope. A 7 mana 7/7 with trample that gains a 7 life is still pretty good, as it gives us some life to play with for the Graveborn Muses and the Gristlebrand's of the world. And if he dies, he also draws a card, but it's not even the best creature we can get. And in comes Craterhoof Behemoth, 8 mana 5/5 haste. That's not very good, but when Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control get trample and +X/+X, where X is a number of creatures you control. So let's say you have 3 creatures in play, you play Craterhoof, now you have 4 creatures in play, all creatures get +4/+4 and trample, so that's even better than an overrun, and Craterhoof gets trample and +X/+X as well, so you have a 9/9 together with a overrun plus an additional +1/+1. So that's pretty powerful. If you have even more creatures in play, then this is just lethal. Just think about spider spawning that puts a ton of spider tokens into play, and follow it up with the Craterhoof. Maybe use it with a Rescue from the Underworld, do it at the opponent's end step, and then suddenly on your upkeep you've got a Craterhoof into play that's gonna finish out the game. So this is usually what I'll get with a Runescar Demon, unless there's a very particular situation where getting another creature might be better. So that's another nice addition from the expansion. Now let's take a look at our mana base. I'm running 4 Golgari Guildgate, 10 Forests and 11 Swamps. And I could actually go down to 24 and add another Pelakka Worm. That's something I was gonna do earlier, but I forgot. So yeah, now we're running 2 Pelakka Worms and 24 lands, just so we have some more life gain and some additional fatties to get back with Rescue from the Underworld. Let's see how the deck performs, and let's jump into some games. Alright, let's take a look at our opening hand. We see 4 lands we're on a play, and we have an Assistant and a Admirers. So this hand is missing a 2-drop, but otherwise I'd say it's decent. We have something to fill the graveyard and some card draw here, so I think I'll keep it. Not the most exciting hand, but if we draw a Wayfinder next turn, that could change very quickly. Visionary would also be a decent draw. Opponent leads with an island, and there's a Guildgate that we might as well play here. Let's see for opponents on a controlling blue deck or an aggressive one. And Arcane Sanctum indicates a more controlling version, or perhaps even an artifact deck. And now there's Elvish Visionary a bit late to the party, and I think I'll just play the Necromancer's Assistant, since we do have a turn 4 play. And perhaps we want to keep the Visionary to get the Admirers back at some point from the graveyard. Alright, so we hit 1 creature and a Dead Reckoning, which is a little unfortunate. You always want to hit creatures with your Assistants and Wayfinders. So let's say go. Now we have a creature in play to start attacking, and we still have a lot of card draw going before we can fire off the spider spawning. Opponent has Dissolve mana available now, so we do have to be aware of counter spells, but that's where Masked Admirers is quite good, because even if he gets countered, he goes to the graveyard, and next turn we can simply get it back by playing a Elvish Visionary. But let's attack first. Maybe your opponent plays something here. He does not, so down to 17 he goes. And I'm okay with running out the Admirers here. And let's get it countered. Or maybe not. Yep, there's a Nullify, so no Dissolve. But that's fine. If our opponent's just gonna keep taking 3 damage a turn, that's totally fine. Alright, there's another spider spawning. At the moment we have 2 creatures in the graveyard. So let's attack first. Raise the alarm would be pretty painful here, but I don't think our opponent has it. Alright, down to 14 he goes. Yeah, there's no mana leaks in this game, so might as well play the Visionary here. Let's see if it happens, and now we can get the Admirers back and draw another card. And there's Craterhoof. Alright, so we have a game plan, and that's just try and resolve spider spawning and then try and resolve Craterhoof. Meanwhile, we still keep applying pressure with these creatures. Angelic Edict on our assistant, that's perfectly fine. It does get exiled, which is unfortunate, but it's a 5 mana removal spell on a 3 mana creature. Alright, so do we want to fire off a spider spawning on one creature? I don't think so, so let's just play the Admirers here. But we can attack first. And I probably should have played the Admirers before the land in case we drew a Guildgate. But hopefully that doesn't happen. And it does, of course. Don't think it'll be a problem, but should have played around it. Alright, so our opponent has red mana available. And 6 mana total. Casts a Think Twice to cycle. And maybe flashes it back, who knows. Or he could keep up a Dissolve now. Alright, so we have possibly 7 mana available here. So let's attack first to see what happens. And if our opponent doesn't do anything here, I think I'll just play the Visionary, see what we draw. Because playing a spider spawning with only 1 creature in the graveyard is not that exciting. Another land. Yeah, I think I'll just play the Guildgate here and pass the turn. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have Mountain into Anger of the Gods, because that would exile all our creatures. But if he taps out next turn, we can just play the Craterhoof and call it a game. So it does have double red now, so Anger of the Gods is a possibility and would actually be pretty good here. Alright, doesn't have it. That's good. So let's attack. I don't want to run into a counter spell, which our opponent very obviously will have at this point. He has to react. Okay, plays a shock. So our spider spawning got a little better here. Still takes 2 down to 7. And I think now is the time to play the spider spawning, since we've got nothing else going on. And our opponent is sort of forced to counter this. And then we still have the second spider spawning, as well as 2 flashbacks on these spider spawnings. So we were a little bit flooded this game. Drew a lot of land, but as you can see, the deck has still a lot of things going on, thanks to the Master Admirers. Sphinx Bone Wand, so now we see the opponent's win condition. So the opponent's very unlikely to play a sweeper now as a planar cleansing, but since he tapped out, now he's just dead to a Craterhoof Behemoth. Master Admirers triggers, but we don't have 2 forests. But Craterhoof, giving everyone +3/+3 and trample, is gonna get the job done, and that's just how brutal this card can be. GG. Alright, let's move on to the next game. Okay, let's take a look at our opening hand. We are on the play with only 1 land, so this is an easy mulligan. Alright, this is a pretty easy keep. We've got a Guildgate turn 1, all the lands we need for the early game, Visionary for card draw, as well as Rager, Assistant plus Muse for a lot of card draw. So unless our opponent's off to a very aggressive start or has an early Anger of the Gods, I think this hand can go to a lot of places. Hopefully into a rescue from the underworld, or... Alright, Dead Reckoning gives us some removal. Let's play the Visionary here. And would also like to draw something like a Satyr Wayfinder. Alright, there it is. So when you want to draw a particular card, just say the name and it'll come right to you. So now we have an additional way to fuel the graveyard. So we have the Assistant and the Wayfinder, so our Dead Reckoning becomes live. And here just we could play the Rager to try and hit our land drop so we don't miss any, but we do have the Wayfinder to fix that. Other option is playing the Assistant to get some self-milling going, but I think I like the Rager more here, just because I want to make sure to hit all our land drops, which is important if we want to try and cast 7 and 8 drops. Alright, there it is. So next turn we are a little bit off curve, since we are actually, yeah, we can just play the Graveborn Muse, I guess. So that's totally fine. And then turn 5 we will be able to play both the Wayfinder and the Assistant. So I think all is good. Opponent seems to be playing some sort of Selesnya token deck, or usually Selesnya is tokens in this game. Plays a Brimaz, which is a very powerful card, so we do have to find a way to kill it with our Dead Reckoning. Does that mean we jump the gun and play the Wayfinder or the Assistant this turn? I don't think so. I think it's still worth playing the Muse here. Make our opponent have either removal for it, which seems unlikely, or we do get to draw a bunch of cards. And we still want to hit our land drops, so... Okay. The opponent might also not attack, because he doesn't want to lose the Brimaz if we double or triple block. Jungle Shrine means our opponent has access to red mana. Let's see if he has a follow-up. Could have a Cultivate, which means he might be just a more ramp deck. Instead he plays a Beastmaster's Ascension, which is a good card, but usually you want to keep it in hand until you can activate it for the most part, or activate it all at once. But in this board state it's not going to be a bad card. It does only get one counter because the token does not trigger it. So the question here is, do we want to trade the Muse for the Brimaz? And honestly, I think it buys us enough time that it's worth it. Let's block like this. Opponent kills a Muse. Or actually, yeah, I think we can wait a turn and draw some cards of the Muse and then block the Brimaz next turn. Because I do want to hit our land drop, is a thing. Alright. There's a land drop and there's a Shieldred, which is not bad. So let's see. I think we play the Wayfinder first, so we might have Dead Reckoning available. Yeah, seems like the play here. And if our opponent finds a way to kill our Muse, we can always chum block with our 1/1s for a while. So our opponent, so we revealed a Graveborn Muse, which will be able to deal 3 damage to Brimaz should he block. So if we attack with our 1/1 and he blocks, we can finish Brimaz off with a Dead Reckoning. Does leave our opponent with a token, and that would mean we draw a Graveborn Muse next turn, which I don't know we really need at this point. Another option here is just playing the Assistant and get even more self-mill going, which I don't hate, since if our opponent attacks next turn, I'm more than glad to trade away the Graveborn Muse. So let's play the Assistant, see what we reveal, and there it is. Shadowborn Demon is an excellent target for Dead Reckoning. So we don't even have to trade the Muse next turn if we don't want to. And I think the opponent's pretty far away from triggering the Ascension, which we can also stall for a while thanks to spider spawning anyways. Alright, let's see what the opponent has here. Triplicate Spirits would be pretty good, but not for long, as we do have 3 creatures in the graveyard and pretty much 2 spider spawnings. And we also have a Shieldred and a Runescar Demon. Shieldred is good if our opponent doesn't have a lot of tokens and perhaps only has a Brimaz in play. We're 2 turns away from casting this. We also do have to be aware of the Graveborn Muse plus the Assistant dealing 2 damage to us every turn, but also drawing us 2 cards. So we should be able to close out the game before that becomes a real problem. Alright, opponent plays a Mentor of the Meek. So now if he attacks with Brimaz, he can pay 1 to draw a card, but he elects not to attack. Alright, so that's a lot of cards. And yet another spider spawning. Let's see. So we have enough lands to be able to cast a Shieldred next turn. I think I like using Dead Reckoning here. So we can cast a Dead Reckoning, play the Visionary to draw the Shadowborn Demon, or we could play the Visionary first to draw an unknown card. I don't think it matters a ton. Although drawing the Shadowborn Demon might not be bad, so we can sacrifice the Muse should that be a problem. So yeah, let's Dead Reckoning first. Demon and target Brimaz. So that's gone. Now we can play the Visionary to get the Demon back, but we can attack first. And I'm okay with attacking with everyone except... Actually, yeah, this is fine. I'm okay with losing a 1/1 if he blocks. Means our opponent takes 9 damage here. And we get an additional creature in the graveyard for spider spawning. So yeah, we've got a ton of stuff going on here. We've got a million spider spawnings. We've got a Runescar Demon that can fetch a Craterhoof. We've got Shieldred coming into play next turn. So I would say we're in a pretty good spot here. And green-white with only 4 lands is not really threatening us in any way. And as you can see, even though this is not a blue deck, we're still drawing a million cards. So I like playing the Runescar, the Shadowborn, so we can sacrifice the Graveborn at some point. But I think the game's gonna end before that. We will really have a chance to do that. Alright, this is not bad. Our opponent gets to draw 2 cards of Mentor if he wants to. And he does. So he's back up to 7 cards, but his board state is not really impressive. Is he going to attack? I wouldn't think so. He does, alright. He does have 2 tokens, so he can block the Assistant and another 1-drop, or 1/1, I should say. So he would still take 5 there. Alright, so we do go down to 9 here. So let's see. We could play the Shadowborn Demon, kill a 1/1 perhaps. Attack with everyone, opponent blocks the Assistant, and then we still go through for 7 damage, which is not bad. So we would be in trouble if our opponent plays land into Fireball, or Banefire I should say, for 5, because then we do go down to 4. Yeah, that's not even a problem. Other option is playing Shieldred here after attacking, so opponent has to sacrifice Mentor. We could also play a Spider Spawning, just a million options here. Kinda like playing Shieldred just to be able to play Shieldred, which is pretty awesome. And I do think we attack with everyone. If our opponent doesn't block anything, is he dead here? Yeah, so he does have to block at least one creature. And we can always adjust our plan according to how he blocks here. So these are the predictable blocks. And alright. So let's see, Shieldred or not to Shieldred. We always have a Gristlebrand for next turn. Yeah, I like playing Shieldred. Now that the assistant's gone, we only have one zombie in play. And Shieldred is not a zombie, so we're only losing one a turn. And our opponent now has to sacrifice. Alright, so opponent has a removal spell for Shieldred, but I'm pretty sure he still has to sacrifice a creature here because this still went on the stack, and once things are on the stack, they tend to stay there until they resolve. So unfortunately we don't get to put a creature back into play, but we didn't have any fatties here anyways. So yeah, our opponent's at 4, and alright, Rebel Master is pretty good. But his token does have to attack, so he only has one blocker. So next turn he would have to block the Graveborn Muse, take 3, go down to 1, but we do have Shadowborn Demon to kill the Rebel Master, so that's not even gonna be relevant. Otherwise, Rebel Master plus Beastmaster Ascension can be pretty scary. Right, Greaterhoof. I guess this is even better. So yeah, just a million ways to play out this game, but I think it's very unlikely that we can lose. Alright. So let's move on to the next game. Let's take a look at our opening hand, which unfortunately only has one land, so we have to ship this. That's another one-lander. Yeah, it's tempting to keep with the Wayfinder, but I think it's too greedy. And this could work if we draw some more lands. We do have a Rager to cycle. Alright, there's another land, that's good. So we'll probably just play the Rager on 3 to make sure we keep hitting our land drops. And then we can play the Assistant to set up possible spider spawnings. Looks like we might be playing the mirror match of sorts. Alright, Elvish Pioneer. I did test the Pioneer in this build, and it wasn't terrible, but obviously the Pioneer does become a lot worse if you don't play him early, or if you don't have enough lands to support him. Looks like our opponent's on a more elvish version of green-black, so perhaps making use of the new elf that was added thanks to the expansion. Let's just pass the turn here. So we'll take 2. And hopefully our opponent does not have that particular elf, because it would be pretty good here. Alright, just an Elvish Visionary. And anything else? Elixir of Immortality seems a little loose, as it's not really a card that you want in a aggressive creature deck. So we'll take 2, and then we'll play the Rager, which will just stop the Pioneer and Visionary from attacking, which is good. So the black could be for some removal from the opponent, as that's something green doesn't have, so I guess that would make sense to play black to have access to those removal spells. Alright, and Masked Admirers, which is also an elf from the expansion. So far our opponent has a lot of elves, but no way to really benefit from having all these elves in play, which is sort of the problem with relying on only 4 creatures that really reward you for playing all these elves. Opponent attacks with everyone, and I think we block the Pioneer in case our opponent has a way to get the Visionary back and draw another card with it. Alright, 4 lands. Let's play the Assistant to block the Admirers. And we revealed 2 Spider Spawnings and Demon, so not bad. And let's play the Guildgate. Next turn we can play the Demon if we want to. This guy's staying on defense, so we have a blocker for the Admirers and one for the second Pioneer. Alright, Paragon, that's gonna make things a little more interesting. So this is quite a lot of damage here. Luckily we can still trade for this guy and trade for this guy. So we'll take 4 down to 11, but we do have removal for the Paragon, luckily. Our own Admirers, but I think it's important to take this off the board. We do not have enough creatures in the graveyard to keep the demon around, so we'll have to sacrifice him, but I think preventing 4 damage here is pretty important. And we do have a blocker this turn, so it's actually preventing 5 damage. Alright, Ceruli Gatekeepers, another elf, so maybe a reason to play those Guild Gates. Getting back the Admirers, and I don't think our opponent's gonna attack here. Alright, upkeep, we have to sacrifice the demon because we don't have enough creatures in the graveyard. Rescue from the Underworld is pretty spicy. Can get back a Runescar demon, but we can just cast one next turn anyways. So let's just play the Masked Admirers here. So we have a blocker for at least the Visionary. And it lands not bad, I guess. Alright, so we just have to survive a couple more turns and then we can stabilize with these demons. Masked Admirers fine. And another Pioneer, which at this point is not doing a whole lot. And another Pioneer, so as you can see they do drop off significantly in the late game. And so far this elixir has been pretty useless, I think. Opponent's not gonna throw away his elf, so we do have the option to prevent 2 damage here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. I think we can take the 2 here, so we have an additional blocker for these 1/1s. Alright, not bad. So we could Dead Reckoning something here, but I think just playing the Runescar Demon's better. And I think we do get a Palaka Worm here, just because our life total is pretty low. Usually I'll get Greater Hoof, but we don't have enough creatures to go for lethal next turn. So I think getting Palaka Worm here makes sense. We can still rescue the second demon to get the Greater Hoof if we want to. So we just have to survive one more turn here. And I think we should be able to. Cultivate's fine, so our opponent will not play an additional creature this turn. So our opponent got a little unlucky in the sense that he didn't get the elf that pumps creatures equal to the amount of elves you control, which is the big payoff card. Alright, let's play the Palaka, so we're not at risk of dying to another Paragon next turn. And I think it's a little too early to start attacking ourselves here. I think playing defense is a little more on the safe side, but a Paragon here could do a lot of damage. Alright, Vengevine. So I think our opponent just has to keep all his creatures around. And now we can rescue the Plaka Worm to get the demon back, which is just gonna be a lot of value. So let's see, 7-9. We could also use Dead Reckoning, but there's no creature in particular I want to kill. So let's just play the Visionary. And then pause the turn so we can rescue the Plaka Worm and then get back a demon, which will get back a Craterhoof Behemoth, which will then finish the game. So I think we've got this locked up, and there's the payoff card, Timberwatch Elf, but it's a little too late at this point, as it does have Summoning Sickness and you can't activate him right away. But you can imagine how this would have been pretty powerful earlier. So let's get back Runescar Demon, and the Plaka Worm can go away to gain us some more life. Could have also used it on the Runescar Demon, I guess. So we get them both back. And let's get a Craterhoof Behemoth in here. Where is it? There it is. And let's see, is this lethal? We have a flyer, and it's gonna be... I don't actually think it's gonna be lethal, but it should do enough damage that I'm willing to cast it here. And we do have a nice life buffer, plus creatures on defense, so let's let the opponent do the math here, as I don't think we're at risk of dying, and their opponent is gonna have to do some chumps. Does have the elixir still, so is it technically at 25, and I think our opponent's gonna give up. So I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day!